10th president of FEW was Marie Argana. She has over 20 years service with the Bureau of the Census. Marie served as national president from 1984 to 1986.
During my tenure as president, legislative activities took on a much more important role than they had been in the past several years. That was primarily because there were a lot of bills that were introduced that dealt with issues of concern to federal women. In 1985, the Board of Directors adopted the FEW legislative agenda as a structure for the legislative program. The legislative agenda, which is put together by the legislative director, legislative chair, and the president of FEW, really has 3 tiers. The first tier focuses on issues that directly impact federally employed women, not just members of FEW, but all federally employed women. The second tier focuses on issues that affect all federal employees, including men. The third tier focuses on issues that affect women in general. We felt this was a really good way to focus our limited resources, both in terms of money and personnel, and trying to categorize what we felt in terms of monitoring legislative activities. Of course, the ERA, which was not in any one of the tiers, was in a class by itself. That had overall priority, and passage of that is still important to FEW. Since legislation was so important during my tenure, I spent a lot of time testifying on Capitol Hill. I testified in support of parental leave, pay equity, which was still not passed by Congress, the new retirement system, and alternative work schedules. Actually, FEW can take a lot of credit for the permanent authorization of flexitime. We were heavily involved in organizing real intensive and extensive lobbying efforts. Plus, we did testify before several committees on this very important topic. During Dorothy Nelm's presidency, actually during May Chapman's presidency, we had signed an agreement with OPM, and it had been renewed during Mary Louise Ulick's presidency. But that had expired, and we had over the years tried to obtain another agreement with OPM. We were singularly unsuccessful. I was no more successful than any of the other presidents, even though I did meet with Donald Devine, then director of OPM, to talk about issues of concern to women and to talk about an agreement. However, I was not successful, but an agreement has been signed, as you know, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that later. When I was president, I traveled to many regions, and one of the greatest joys of my presidency was meeting all of the people in the regions and working with them and becoming friends with all of them. I had a secondary goal in traveling, though, not just to promote the interests of FEW and not to meet new people. I wanted to show the people who were not in national FEW that the national president was a human being. The national president is not the most important person in the organization. The most important person in the organization are the individual members, both at the chapter and the regional level. Without you, we are nothing. We are not an organization. We're only an office building. The local places are where the action is. Lobbying is most effective done at the grassroots effort. Even though we're here in Washington, we can see people here in Washington. The constituents of the Congress people are the ones that they're most interested in, not professional lobbyists. Networking is just almost impossible to talk about because it's so pervasive in our society. But what it really means is that you get to know a lot of people. You get to make a lot of contacts, and some are your peers, some are your mentors, and some are people you are mentoring. And through this organization, I've made so many contacts, and I'm a part of so many networks, I can't even count the number that I'm a part of. One highlight of my tenure was an absolutely terrific national training program in Las Vegas. I'd never been there, so that was also one, that was a first experience, going to Las Vegas. And I'm looking forward to another one in 1993, which is our 25th anniversary. I have been involved in FEW since the early 70s, and almost all of my activity has been at the national level. In 1976, I became resolutions chair, and have been resolutions chair since then, in during another administration. I also was executive vice president for 2 years. I was the first executive vice president that was elected under the reorganized bylaws. I was the vice president for policy and long-range planning for 2 years. Under my leadership in that role, we developed the first long-range plan that FEW has ever had, and I have been dedicated to keeping that long-range plan alive throughout my years in FEW. My tenure as president, I was on the board as immediate past president. That's kind of nice because you don't have to do a whole lot. You kind of serve as an advisor to the president, and you do, other things she really wants you to do. No really defined responsibilities. But in that capacity, I also served as chair of the 20th anniversary steering committee, a celebration. We had a large cocktail party and reception on Capitol Hill, and we garnered support from Blue Cross Blue Shield in developing a 20th anniversary booklet, which was also a significant accomplishment. It was one of the first efforts we've made to get support from private sector organizations. Throughout my years in FEW, I'm currently legislative chair for the organization, for the National FEW. And during my years in FEW and as a member of the board of directors, I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds and maybe thousands of talented and dedicated people. All of us are volunteers. These volunteers are the glue that hold the organization together. And without them, we're nothing but an office building in Washington, D.C. And life doesn't stop after you become a national president. You can continue to go on to work in the organization. As I said before, I'm legislative chair this year at the national level. I'm also nominating committee chair at my chapter. So I still continue to work at the local level because that's where I know the most important things are taking place. And we all need to continue to work both at the local and national and regional level until our goals are achieved, the goals of greater opportunity for women in the federal government and the end of sexual harassment for women in the federal government. Thank you very much.